By all human standards, the church which Jesus established through his apostles should have never gotten off the ground. Everything seemed to be against its success and its survival. The men which were charged with establishing it all over the world were so few. Only 12 in the beginning, and then a 13th added later on. But what could such a small number of men do? Then there was the problem of the man behind it. Most people outside of tiny pockets around Judea and Galilee had never heard of Jesus of Nazareth, and many who did know of him despised him, or at the most regarded him with a degree of curiosity. He was a man who never held a public office. He never started any kind of school, never wrote any books. In fact, the only thing that he ever wrote, as far as we know, he wrote in the sand, and we don't even know what he wrote. But to build something that would last, to the eyes of the world, Jesus went about it in all the wrong ways. Even if people would listen to the message of his apostles, how could they possibly accomplish this task? The fastest overland transportation was by horseback. But which of the apostles could afford to buy a horse? The most rapid travel by sea was by slow sailing vessels. Communications were no better. The apostles could personally speak a message orally, or they could write it and send it on its way by a personal messenger. But in either case, they were limited by the slow travel methods of the day. And what about the severe racial prejudice among the first converts? We see this even affecting the apostles. Christ had sent them to all nations, but their Jewish background caused them to consider the Gentiles as unworthy of their evangelistic efforts for years. Well, had this been simply a human enterprise, then yes, it surely would have failed. But herein lies a convincing proof that the New Testament church is indeed a divine institution. Could it be that the Lord designed it to appear weak and foolish to men so that its success would be indisputable proof that it came from God? Well, this hypothesis is an illustration of what the Apostle Paul stated in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 27 through 29, where he says, "But God chose the foolish things of the world, that he might put to shame them that are wise. And God chose the weak things of the world, that he might put to shame the things that are strong. And the base things of the world, that the things that are despised did God choose. Yea, and the things that are not, that he might bring to naught the things that are, that no flesh should glory before God." If men would only listen, they would not marvel that the gospel and the church that it produces are equally indestructible. Jesus built his church on the fact of his own deity and promised that death, which is Satan's strongest weapon, would not prevail to prevent its establishment and its perpetuity in Matthew 16, verses 16 through 18, where Jesus said, "And I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." How foolish are men who try to improve upon the church to make it more appealing to the masses. Wise men will not tamper with it. We ought to press on with a full confidence that Christ is with his faithful church now and forever. You may remember in Matthew's account of the Great Commission in Matthew chapter 28, verses 19 and 20, Jesus told them to go and to teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. And then the key part, "And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." Thank you for joining us today. May God bless you with a wonderful day.